Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Science Connections, that is broadcasted on the Muslim Network TV. Nature, curiosity, and hope. This show is about exploring nature through science to discover the wonderful world around us, from the quarks to the galaxies and everything in between. Our guide will be our innate curiosity, asking critical questions that only lead to more questions, embarking on a journey of trial and error, failing many more times than succeeding, in the hope of creating a better life for humanity in harmony with the universe. In each episode, we will meet a scientist who will share the science and laws she or he have discovered. We will ask our guest scientist to tell us why she became a scientist and how her journey unfolded, sharing both the triumphs and the challenges she faced in her roller coaster journey of discovery. Lastly, we will learn how her scientific discoveries affected our everyday lives, and without them, life would be never the same. Today, our show is titled She: Science, Health, and Education: How to Use Science to Make a Difference in this World. Our guest is the lead scientist at Dana-Farber Cancer Institute in Boston, and she has a faculty appointment at Harvard Medical School. Please welcome Dr. Naveed Madani.
Thank you so much, Rana. This was a wonderful introduction, and it actually kind of got me emotional because of the way you described science and nature and curiosity and how to go through life through critical thinking. It's an honor to be with you. Thank you so much for invitation, and I'm available for your questions.
Yes, so together in these minutes that are coming, we want to engage in a conversation to learn more about your experience, your journey, your challenges, and how you've dealt with them, and most importantly, your inspiration and your hopes. So would you start with sharing with us what got you interested in science in the first place, and how did you pursue that curiosity of yours?
This is such an important question, and it's a timely question because of what's been happening to me in the last 3 or 4 weeks. Our original date for this interview, for this conversation, I had to postpone for a couple of reasons. One was, health reasons. The other one was that serendipitously, just unfortunately, the person who got me into science passed away on her birthday at 84 years of age. And I like to talk about her as well in this program. I was born and raised in Iran. I left Iran at 14 and moved to United States at 19 in hope of pursuing a career in medicine. In Iran, in 1980s, if you were really good at school and thinking and science and everything, there was two paths for you: engineering program or medicine. And I obviously had picked medicine because growing up I had seen some injustices, and I felt like health injustices, and I felt like through medicine I can be a remedy for those injustices. So I came here thinking that said all I have to do is medicine, and I applied to medical school as a foreign student. Actually, I was on a F1 visa, but our last year, senior year, for a requirement for my degree, for bachelor's degree, now we had to do senior research. I had thought, what is this research? What is this all about? So I walked into the office of a friend now a friend who unfortunately passed away, my mentor at the time, Dr. Maria Linder. I really loved the kind of work that she was doing. She was looking at iron metabolism in the body. And I grew up in the south of Iran, and a lot of people had issues with iron metabolism at that time. So I went to her office, and I said, I want to do my senior research, my senior thesis with you. And I had heard that she was extremely um, rigorous and very tough on her students. And a funny thing is that she was the only person that I could I could pick as a mentor, because other people, it was a fall semester, a lot of people were teaching at that time and they couldn't take me. So I just, decided to, well, she's going to be tough. She's going to be tough. I went in there, and she decided to pick me. And that probably was one of the luckiest days of my life, because we became this lifelong friends. She was a mentor first. Actually, she was always a mentor, because not only she brought me, opened up this beautiful world of science for me, but also she mentored me on life, on arts, on nature. We would go on hikes together. So she was a born mentor, and her passing about 3 weeks ago was extremely hard on me, because I thought she was going to live forever. Like, I wasn't worried. I was worried for other people in their 70s and 80s, but I really wasn't worried about her. Any accomplishments I had in the United States, I would call her and tell her after 30 years, Maria, this is what's happening. This is what I got. This is what I'm doing at Harvard. Her pedigree was amazing. She grew up in New York and did her training at Harvard and MIT, was a faculty member at MIT before she moved to California, and that's how I met her. So anyway, that was how I got into science and research and critical thinking, and getting up in front of my thesis committee and talking about my research, ask very tough questions and being able to answer it, and make that's what I tell my students right now, is that you get analyzed by your peers constantly, so your mind is working. So I got accepted to medical school, two medical schools in the United States. But I started thinking, you know what? I love research. So then I did MD, PhD, but unfortunately, because I wasn't a U.S. citizen at that time, a lot of the MSTP programs needed you to be U.S. citizen. I didn't get accepted. So between medicine and science or PhD, I picked PhD, and I went that route. And I think I've been extremely blessed, because now a lot of my research is actually very medically related, so I can get the best of both worlds. So that was a little bit of a long answer to your question, but that's how I got into science.
I couldn't agree with you more. I tell my students similarly. Doctors, medical physicians are important. Pharmacists are important, but really, really, it is the basic scientists who discover the biological mechanisms behind how normal cells work, so we can understand how when cells don't work properly, so we can develop solutions. So humanity needs more scientists. They are the real heroes. They are the real champions. So I couldn't agree with you more, to encourage our young people to get into science. So that's an amazing journey. And throughout your journey, you mentioned your mentors along the way. Do you want to share any particular challenge you faced as you pursued your career in science?
So I have been very blessed and lucky to have amazing mentors that I've kept in contact with, and I tell my students that too, because the learning process doesn't end at 25 or 30 or 40 or 50. As a scientist, we keep on learning. We have to be on top of our game, or on top of the literature and everything. So I've had Maria was my first mentor. After that, Beverly Emerson and Shelley Barton at Salk Institute in San Diego. And then after that was Sue Kozak and David Cabot at Oregon Health Sciences University in Oregon, where I got my PhD. And then now here I have, the former president of Dana-Farber. I have my science mentor, Joe Sidrowski. And even though I've become extremely independent, there are times that I always, write to them. and say, what can I do in this setting? Or when I write a grant, I always have them look at it. So the challenges for me have been, as a woman, sometimes, um, you're not viewed, even though science is very truthful and it's probably the best. I mean, I haven't been in other fields, but it's probably the best field that you're not judged as much as, maybe other fields you are. But it's still, Rana, we still get judged as women scientists. So that's probably sometimes, you know one time I was the only woman in a room. It was a Zoom call, and somebody said, "Oh, what are you doing here?" Because I was very junior. Whereas, I don't think they would say anything like that to a male counterpart. So those have been tough, but overall, when I compare my story and what I've gone through with others, I think, I've had it really good.
Great.
The challenge is like keeping up all the
Uh-huh.
time with things.
You mentioned two things that I think are really, really important. One is the one should have a positive attitude to accept critique. That those who critique you and who give you the honest feedback are the ones you want around you. You want a group of people who will really tell you what they think and critique your science, because that's how you do better science. And I think that's an important point to keep in mind. Usually we like to surround ourselves by people who praise us, and
Right.
that is not helpful at all. Being uncomfortable is a good way to move forward. And you mentioned also your mentors, and I think those don't come by themselves. They don't just drop from the sky. It's about reaching out, having the courage to reach out and ask for help. And that's okay. We all need help. Even when we appear to be senior scientists, we still need help from each other. And I think those are very important lessons that you've shared with us and with the young generation.
Absolutely. And speaking of criticism, I always talk about, I'm sure you've gone through the NIH peer review for grants and all that. And I always joke that, you send this grant, this science that's so close to your heart. It's like a child almost that, you don't want anybody to criticize it, right? And then they send these reviews back with so many, criticism and everything. So you go through different stage of depression. This, at first it's anger, like what are they saying? This is not true. Then it's like depression. Oh my God, what am I going to do? Then, and the last one is acceptance. And I think that NIH peer review really builds character as a scientist, because then when you move away from it, like for a week, and then you look at the criticism, you accept it and you say, you know what, that's right. If I do this, it's going to get better. And in general, like 8 out of 10 criticism, it's actually, constructive criticism for your work. So that's another wonderful part of science is that you build on your successes and also on your shortcomings, and you make it better and better. So especially when I give talks in our region, Middle East and North Africa, I don't think a lot of people are used to this kind of like really gut harsh criticism about our work, right? So I always say, no, you have to take it with a grain of salt. You have to like really get away from it from a week, for written criticism, and then go back and say, you know what, they're right. We can make this, application or grant or article better.
Yeah, so it's not about taking things personal. I think that's an important thing. That's not about you as a person or critiquing your way of thought. It's just sharing information from different perspectives.
Right.
And I think one of the highlights of a scientist is being comfortable with ambiguity, comfortable with things not being clear cut, and therefore allowing additional opinions to weigh into your own, as you, like you said, constructive criticism moving forward.
Absolutely.
So we're going to take a break and we'll be back.
Great. Thank you.
A free online chat can give you the personalized tips you need to start boosting your retirement savings today.
took over my bedroom. Come on, come on. Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. Dad! You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
Find out how to use an awkward silence to help a friend with their mental health at seizetheawkward.org.
I am what hunger looks like in America.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes.
Right here, baby. Look. Uma.
Noah. Something more than a birthday is happening here. Once you can see it, you can help. The sooner you recognize the signs of autism, the sooner you can make a lifetime of difference for your child. Start by answering a few simple questions at screenforautism.org.
Welcome back, everyone. We have with us Dr. Naveed Madani, the senior scientist at the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute with a faculty appointment at Harvard Medical School. Dr. Naveed, another question. Could you share with us more about what your science is about? What do you do research on? And how you as you made your different discoveries in your journey, to tell us more about that journey as well.
Yes. So my science right now involves understanding the entry mechanism of HIV, mostly so that by understanding the aspects of entry of human immunodeficiency virus type 1, be able to inhibit it. So my first, first decade, undergraduate, not quite decade of research was on translation and transcription of hemoglobin and also iron metabolism, like I mentioned earlier. But in the past, I'd say 22, 23 years, I've been really fascinated with viruses, specifically human immunodeficiency type 1, HIV-1. Mostly because of the atrocities this virus had caused in, sub-Saharan Africa and for our young people. And right now, the new infections, unfortunately, unlike COVID that we have a vaccine in, or polio, after a little over 40 years of identification of this virus, we don't have a vaccine. It's the most studied virus to date. And it's like a puzzle, Dr. Rana. It is so fascinating. There's so many, you think about how this very small being is changing itself so that it can take advantage of the human cell. So I'm in awe of it, actually, and that's what you were talking about, nature. Just nature is just amazing what we see, and looking through it through a scientist's eye, it's fascinating. And we'll come back to that, a little bit later on about looking through, through it through a scientist's eye. So I've been looking at the entry of the virus and also a very potent protein of the virus that, inherently we actually have proteins that we can defend against this virus. But then HIV, it created a protein within itself that combats our protein. and it's called viral infectivity factor. So for my graduate work, I worked on the viral infectivity factor, as well as I characterized it more, as well as looking at entry. And then for my postdoctoral work and everything else that I've done since then, I've been looking at the entry only. In my undergraduate work, I did a lot of work with chemistry. So now, I'm kind of going back to my origin, and I'm collaborating with wonderful chemists in University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. And we have designed in the past 15 years, we have made a small molecule that was published about 2005. We have taken that small molecule and we have characterized it, made it better to become an inhibitor, and it binds a very conserved area of HIV. And to make the long story short, we are using this small molecule as a prophylactic. I've always been very interested in studying prevention of diseases, especially reproductive diseases, sexually transmitted diseases among women. So now what we are doing is we are making this a small molecule, we're putting it in a vaginal ring so that women are able to use this vaginal ring as a prophylactic. Women don't have a control of using condoms, for men. So this is going to be in their control, that they can use it to stop inhibition of, HIV transmission. We are testing this. I have a R01 NIH grant, and we are testing it right now in female monkeys, and we hope we'll have successful results.
Thank you. I mean, two points you raised. One is the importance of interdisciplinary work. That you're working in biology and human biology, but you need the chemist, and I'm sure you need the physicist. And so no longer can we work in silos, and we always are learning. I'm sure you've revived all your chemistry just by interacting with your colleagues from chemistry. But to keep that open mind of collaboration, creating these bigger teams so that we can do better science and come up with better solutions. You also mentioned evolution. You mentioned how the virus evolved to counteract the proteins that we as humans produce to protect ourselves. So the virus evolves, comes up with a new version of a protein that can still gain entry. And it's an ongoing process that never ends.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so fascinating. And at the same time, so frustrating because of that. And I think there's so much you've learned from your research on HIV that has informed other fields, like for COVID and others. So yes, there's no vaccine for HIV, but I'm sure that knowledge that you have created has impacted, because we all build on each other.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. No, this is what I always tell people, is that a couple of things. Before 1980s, in general, science was done in silos. You look at papers before 1980s, they were, I don't know, maximum 4 people on it, 5 people on it. But right now you get papers that are very interdisciplinary, because the questions that we have to answer, we really need collaborations, and, to me, I actually have a talk that I talk about this, about like history of HIV and the science of HIV. It brought in, because of the travesty that was causing around the world, it brought in all scientists from, bioengineers. Like right now, the rings that we are making, we have collaborators in California that are bioengineers. They are making those rings. It brought bioengineering. It brought thermodynamicists. I mean, we work with thermodynamicists to look at the thermodynamic of the protein that HIV uses to enter its host cell. We work with immunologists, we are virologists, biochemists, but the interdisciplinary part of it is incredibly important. And then the last thing, bringing in COVID into this mix, is that there was a lot of mistrust that how come COVID vaccine happened so fast? I think COVID vaccine happened so fast because of, it was on the shoulders of HIV research. We had done so much research in the past 40 years on HIV that I think, that's how the science was moving forward. And, I talked to my colleagues is that the first 2 months of COVID, it was like, HIV in real time for the past 20 years, but a lot of it was we built on discoveries, and that's why we were very lucky to get the COVID vaccine within about 6 months.
Absolutely. And I think that also emphasizes the importance of basic science,
Yes.
that pursuing a very basic question that seems at the first glance not to have an impact, or it's like, okay, so what's this going to help?
Right.
But it will. And we always need that basic science. We must never stop funding it, stop working on it, because they are the ones that build that basis that eventually will lead to application science. But without them, no way. So if anyone has a burning question of trying to understand the world around them, to pursue that passion and not necessarily think that, oh, I have to find an application now. You don't have to. You're just adding another little brick into the building of knowledge and science. And absolutely, your example is right in the middle of that.
No, it's really important, and I understand. I'm sure you agree with me that it takes a specific personality to go into science, because I say 70 to 80% of our results are negative, right? But I was talking to a mentor of mine, and he said, "What do you mean 70%?" And I thought, oh my God, I said, like, he's going to think that, what kind of a research is she doing? And he said, I think 90% of our. And
absolutely.
You have to persevere, you have to persevere through. And the negative results, I don't even want to call it negative, because we're learning from them too.
Exactly.
You're learning.
Absolutely. And there's like a new journal about publishing negative results, because you don't want somebody to repeat the experiment that you did not find and waste their time.
Exactly. And going back to the COVID thing, one of the things that I have said that as scientists we really need to do, and we haven't done it to the extent that I think we should, is talking about our work in layman's term for general public, because of that mistrust about science especially in the United States. I don't know about other countries that happened in 2020. I looked at it and I thought, we need to be out there in public more, talk about our work. And like you mentioned, we, personality-wise, a lot of us are, not you and I, but a lot of us are introverted. We don't, families understand medical work. Like, yes, she's going to, do a shift, it's an overnight shift. But with scientists, when I tell my family and friends that, oh, I have to go, feed my cells in the middle of the night, like, what is this, cells? But I think the more we talk about our work, the more we get excited over our work that we do inherently. I think it's going to be good for lay public.
Oh yeah, and that's why this show is so important, and you being here is so important. Do you want to share with us also, like, in your lab as you're doing your experiments, and like you said, we fail 90% of the time, but we don't want to call it failure, it's learning. Do you want to share like how you deal with that, or give a specific story, how you deal with that feeling of frustration, and what keeps you going to eventually keep that stamina up to the discovery that makes you forget everything else and keep going?
That's a very good question. That's why I said it really takes a personality to do it. What do I do? So I feel like science is a puzzle. One of those puzzles that the edges are very mismatched, not our old-fashioned puzzle. So it's just, you want to see the picture at the end. Like, puzzles are usually frustrating. You want to have the the sides first, the frame first, and then you bring in, there is like a methodology to it, and then you bring in the middle picture. But it's the excitement of finding the full picture at the end. The difference with the puzzle and science is that after you fill it in and you see the picture at the end for the puzzle, with science there's something else next. And I joke with my students that when there's a locked door and you open it, there's another locked door in front of you. And it really needs a specific personality, that curiosity, that inherent curiosity, to be able to look at the broader scope, look at the broader picture. As you know, I started the She Center, and it's going really well, and we love our interactions with our colleagues, in the Middle East and North Africa. And there's a lot on my plate, and a lot of people are like, you know what, you've done really well in the basic sciences. Why don't you just focus on one thing? And it's hard for me, Rana. It's just like, I started the microbicide work, about 15, 16 years ago, and it's really important to me, and I want to see it to the end. So it it's a combination of personality, combination of like inherent curiosity that's in you, and lastly, I think you want to do well for the world. That scientific justice,
Yeah, we owe it
Yeah.
to humanity. That
Right.
if we have knowledge to
Right.
continue the journey, to
Right.
find those that information, those laws that
Right.
can help us fix things or prevent them.
Right.
And that's why you also took the extra step of
Right.
creating the She Center, which we're going to talk about
Yeah.
after we have a break.
Okay.
A free online chat can give you the personalized tips you need to start boosting your retirement savings today.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse, walk a mile in my shoes.
Dad, they took over my bedroom. Come on, come on. Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. Dad! You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
Find out how to use an awkward silence to help a friend with their mental health at seizetheawkward.org.
Right here, baby. Look. Uma.
Noah.
Something more than a birthday is happening here. Once you can see it, you can help. The sooner you recognize the signs of autism, the sooner you can make a lifetime of difference for your child. Start by answering a few simple questions at screenforautism.org.
So welcome back. We'd like you to share with us what is the She Institute, and what made you establish it?
Oh, okay. What made I establish it is a great question. The um, the events of September 11, 2001 really had an effect on me. In 2000, I had been offered a faculty position at a couple of universities in U.S. right after my graduate school. Actually, I hadn't done a postdoc yet. But then I decided to do a postdoc. I came to Boston, and then events of September 11, 2001 happened, and I just, for a long time, I was in a fog. Like, why would that happen? Why? I felt bad, and it might not be, right to say it, but I felt bad for everybody and all of us that were witness to it, people that died, their families. But I also felt bad for the young people who did this attack, because I thought at that young of an age, how can they feel that way to do what they did? And being, born and raised in the Middle East, I wanted to show my colleagues here the beauty of the Middle East and the beauty of the people. So I remember at the time I was a postdoc, going into my advisor's office and say, I don't want to have a traditional tenure track, path of faculty position. And I want to be able to do something more with my science. And right around that time, I was getting, because of the publications that I was having and because of my last name being Middle Eastern, I was getting a lot of invitation for Middle Eastern, especially from Iran, universities to give talks. And I started giving talks at different places, and I started noticing gaps in scientific capacity building. And so in my mind, I thought, why don't we start having communications with these academic universities and colleagues in the Middle East, like Iran, Jordan, UAE, and be able to connect with the students. So in 2012, my colleagues at University of Tehran and United Nations and we put together a conference in Iran that we would take colleagues from United States to Iran to talk about, infectious diseases. And then I took a student of mine, an American from Alaska, no connection, no blood connection to the Middle East. I took him there, and he loved it. And he was able to connect with the young people. And I felt like not only the science got advanced because he did part of his thesis in Iran, but also the understanding between young people was happening, with understandings of nation, dialogue of nations. So we started doing workshops, around scientific capacity building. And one of the things I noticed was that I'd say 80 to 90% of the participants in my workshops were women. So it was, academic women, young women that really wanted to understand science and advance their careers, because we did mentoring workshops as well. So then I remember one night I was in New York doodling on my little, hotel paper, and trying to come up with the, science health, what should I call the center? Because one of the leadership faculty members at Dana-Farber, when he found out about what I'm doing on the side, pretty much in addition to my science, he said, Navid, why don't you write a business plan for a center? So I did that, and I came up with the name Science Health Education. The acronym is SHE, and it's on purpose because of all these fabulous young women that would come to our workshops in everywhere: Morocco, Jordan, UAE, Iran, Lebanon. So that's how the SHE Center came about. And the SHE Center is a place for dialogue, for scientific dialogue, for mentorship dialogue, for communication between, two nations, multiple nations, collaboration. Um, and so the She Center was endorsed by our Dana-Farber president in 2018. And unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know yet, I was diagnosed with the stage 4 ovarian cancer in May of 2019. So soon after the She Center was endorsed. And I think that even gave me more drive because my malady came without any symptoms. It was diagnosed extremely by accident. Um, and then I started thinking, I have to, as a scientist and as a mother and as a woman, I have to talk about this as well, because women have to be in tune of their bodies, and I mean, this completely came out as, so I've been very vocal about my cancer, mostly so that especially young women and, understand reproductive care. So this was 2019. I've been fighting it for 3.5 years now. I've had 5 surgeries. I've had 3, I'm going through chemo again this year, 3 rounds of chemo each year. But getting back to the scientist part of it, it is absolutely fascinating to me how cancer evolves in your body as a scientist. And I always tell people that I was an experimenter, but now I'm an experiment because I'm in a clinical trials right now, or I was during, earlier this year for 6 months. And the science of clinical trials was so fascinating to me. They took my tumors a year ago, they made the small peptides, and then they were injecting those back to me. Very painful procedure, but they were injecting it back so that my immune system gets activated toward these foreign peptides of my own. I mean, they're semi-foreign, right? So that aspect of it was also crazy, fabulous, and the learning experiment that came for myself was really interesting. Here I was for 20 plus years. I had worked on infectious diseases, also reproductive, but infectious diseases. But now I'm doing cancer. So because of my personal experience, part of the work that we are doing at the She Center is targeting young women, especially all women, but young women, to kind of be in tune with their body. I know breast cancer is extremely high in the Middle East and North Africa, so we are putting workshops around breast cancer and also reproductive cancers in general.
I mean, thank you for sharing your personal story. That is so inspiring and empowering. You're amazing. You are our hero, Naveed.
No,
and you highlighted the
you are mine, Rana.
And you highlighted the importance of education, importance of awareness, importance of knowledge, of understanding how things work and why, to be preventive, protective, and if something happens, like in your case where you were doing everything and yet it happened, how to deal with it in a positive way by being fascinated by what's happening in your body, and therefore being open to participating in clinical trials and experiments. Because all of us today, the medicine we take is because others had the courage to be part of these clinical trials, to test this medication that now is safe for us to use. So you're kind of the forerunner, the pioneer of this, if we want to say, of this fight against cancer or any other disease for that matter. So thank you very much for sharing that and inspiring us, all of us, because if we went through something, we may be going through it later in life, but we will always think of you as you share that.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a learning process for me. It has challenged me on many different levels, both personally and professionally. But I've always looked at it with light. And I think and I hope I be triumphant over it.
Absolutely, drawing upon that inner strength, that inner faith,
Yeah.
that and what you're doing is turning it into something positive. And I think that optimism is something we need more of, right? And so, if you want to share with us more about how do you boost that optimism or that resilience, what keeps you going?
My kids. I mean, it's interesting I say my kids now, because this morning I was like, you have to do this, you have to do that. And then I sat in the car and I thought, you know what, whether they clean their room or something, it's not going to make or break the world. Just be easy on them. But it's my kids. I mean, right now I'm really fighting for them to be there, so that I see them graduate. I see them fall in love. I see them, make it in the world. And my biological kids and my non-biological kids, my mentees. You know how both you and I are so close to our mentees, and I just adore this young generation, the young generation that fight for injustice, the young generation that are very vocal, and I'm so proud of them. They're very connected globally. And we see that in different countries, they stand up for injustices, and it's so critical. They're very different from our generation, because of the connectivity, because they see what's happening, almost in real time around the world. So I think those are things that make me go. I have my downtime, pain sometimes is a lot, and I'm actually kind of looking into study of pain as well, because I see, it really brings you down. It's really, it's a chain to your body, while you're swimming, is the pain. So, but in general, yeah, it's my kids, it's young people.
You're amazing. You're even turning what you're experiencing, even if it's like pain, into a curiosity, scientific driven questions. Oh my God, I want to know more about this. That is amazing. That's amazing. So as we conclude this wonderful time with you, would you share with us some advice, recommendations for parents who are watching or young people who are listening?
So for parents, my advice for parents would be, and this is something that I have to learn as well, as I have two boys, 14 and 12-year-old boys, is to listen to them. To listen to them and just see what ticks them, what, makes them, happy, and, drive. Like with one of my boys, I used to be a bookworm and I love reading. And he's like, I'm not that interested, mommy. And I am sad, because books just open so many worlds for you. But at the same time, be patient, because that's going to come around. Be patient. Something else might make their blood boil, and with curiosity, that it wasn't for you. So be patient and just listen to them. For young people, do what you're doing now. I am so impressed with young people. I feel like if I was like them, 20, 25 years ago, our generation would have conquered the world, you know. Yeah. And then with science, and I mean, I know science is my cup of tea, but with science and curiosity, if you have any inkling of, scientific curiosity, just pursue it.
That's amazing, amazing advice. Leaving on a positive tone that the future generation will take care of this world with global climate that's what we're experiencing now, and social injustices rampant around the world. Those words of positivity and optimism is very important, so that our young youth, as they grow up, they take that responsibility and they bring us to the, over the hill to a better world. Thank you so much, inshallah. Thank you so much, Dr. Naveed Madani. And we hope to see you next time.
Inshallah. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. That was a wonderful meeting with Dr. Naveed. I hope you take their advice, and see you next time.